In this video, we're talking about how to lower your car the right way. I'm going to discuss lowering springs, coilovers, and go over some of the pros and cons of both. So we've all been in this situation. We see pictures of lowered cars online and they look so cool and we want to get that low car look, but maybe we're on like a college kid ramen noodle budget. So we come across something called lowering springs and they promise to lower the car a few inches for cheap. So when someone says that they're installing lowering springs, what they usually mean is that they're installing a shorter spring onto their factory shocks and struts. This is the most affordable way of lowering a car. Well, besides just cutting the spring or heating it with a blowtorch, but we won't talk about that. You can get a set of high quality lowering springs from brands like Eibach or H&R for around $250. The problem with just throwing a lowered spring onto your stock suspension is that those stock shocks and struts were designed for the taller factory spring that came on the car. So when you just go to a lowered spring, now the shocks and struts have a lot more travel and the ride is going to feel bouncy as a result. It seems counterintuitive that these performance springs that are meant to lower your car's center of gravity could actually be hurting your handling and ride quality. I went through this exact same thing on my BMW, not knowing a lot about suspension at the time and honestly not really having a lot of money. I just threw some H&R Sport springs onto my factory shocks and struts and the ride definitely suffered as a result. In addition to the worst ride, you're actually going to be putting more wear and tear on your factory shocks and struts, especially if the car already has some miles on it before you install the springs. If you're going to run lowering springs, it's crucial to get a set of matching shocks and struts that are designed and engineered to work with the lowering springs. So in my case, eventually I upgraded to the Bilstein B8 on my BMW, and the difference in the ride quality was night and day, and honestly I regret not doing that sooner or not just installing it all at the same time. So now with the understanding that if you're going to install lowering springs, you're going to want to get a set of performance shocks and struts as well, why not just save up a little bit more and get coilovers, which include the spring, shock, strut, all pre-assembled into one package. There's a lot of advantages to running a coilover system like what we have installed on our FR-S. Coilovers can actually be easier to install than lowering springs because a lot of times they'll come pre-assembled in the box, so you don't have to deal with using a spring compressor, which if you've ever used one of those, they're a pain in the butt. They can be a little bit dangerous and scary to use, but usually with coilovers they're just ready to go right in the car. Coilovers offer different levels of adjustability, so for example on ours you can adjust the ride height, the dampening, the preload, you can even adjust the camber on the front. The Tein Flex Z have different adjustments for the ride height and preload, meaning that you can adjust the ride height without affecting ride quality. So in other words, as you lower the car, it's not forcing the spring to become more stiff, they're two separate adjustments. Lowering springs on the other hand don't have any adjustability at all, you're just kind of stuck with the height that they are, the stiffness, everything is just set the way that it is. There are some suspension kits from companies like Bilstein that include the performance shocks and struts with the springs kind of all curated into one kit, something like the Bilstein B8 I think it's called, and those would be a great option for people who are on a budget, but just keep in mind you're not going to have that full range of adjustability that you would get with a coilover system. So the point of this video isn't just to bash on lowering springs. I still think that they're a great option for people who are just looking to lower their car on a budget, or maybe just lower their car for aesthetic reasons, but just understand that if you're just putting the lowered spring onto your factory suspension components, you're going to be missing out on a lot of the handling advantages that you get from performance suspension, and you're not going to have the adjustability that you get with coilovers. Leave a comment down below and let us know what suspension you're running on your car. If you've ever just ran lowering springs on your factory suspension, let us know in the comments how the ride was. What did you think about it? Give me a thumbs up if this video was helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next one.